Cinnamon with YouTube channel Country Crafts.
And I'm Julianne with Dirt Patch Heaven and also dirtpatchheaven.com.
Thank you very much for joining us. We always start off with the show picking our own Bible verse. And so today's topic, I chose Proverbs 22, 6, and I'm going to read 7 also. And it is it's relating to our topic today. It's generally the one you're going to think of when you discuss our topic. Our topic is actually age-appropriate chores, and we're going to look at different ones that are out there that people are referring to, and I'm kind of going to use Julianne's kids as an example and see if there's any, if it's right on, or if there's any, chores she had them do earlier, or that kind of stuff. So we're going to go over the cleaning aspect, and we're also going to go over the farm aspect, when your kids can start helping you that way. So Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." Now, that goes into so many different areas. Yes, we definitely want to train up our children in a godly way, how to serve him, how to incorporate him in your daily lives, how to turn to him when you're in needs, when you have struggles, or even when everything's working good and you want to give him thanks. It also, what I wanted to highlight was the word train. When you are training, if you go to a job, and I feel bad if anybody does have somebody who's teaching them this way, but if you are being properly trained, they will show you how to do it. They won't just tell you what to do, but they will actually show you and work through it with you. So when we're training our children, we want to make sure that they know life skills. And not everybody loves to clean like I do. I do realize that, but it is a necessity. You do eat off of plates. You need to wash them. You do have laundry. You do need to know how to clean it, and everybody goes through the stage of their life before they're married, when they are on their own, when they're going to have those kind of skills. And I had verse 7 also. It says, "The rich ruleth," and I thought it was very interesting that the very next verse says, "The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." We don't want to be put into that position of having to be a servant to somebody else because of what we've borrowed off of them. So that's why it's also a big thing in the Bible to not owe anything but love. That's what God says. And so that doesn't really go with our thing today, but I do wanted to point out that next verse. So we're teaching our children by example how to do everything. We're showing them, not just telling them, but they do see what you do. So you want to make sure that that even when you don't realize that, you are training them. Yeah. And especially in that area also with not borrowing off of people if you can help it, so.
Well, and along with what you said a little bit earlier about teaching them, anybody who's been around a child for very long knows that they are little monkeys. They, especially with house cleaning, motion type things, anything that you're doing, they're doing. So if you're good at keeping your home clean, if you're good at working hard, your children, the younger they are that you facilitate that and encourage them, a lot of times they can just learn naturally by mimicking you, and because they enjoy spending time with you. And so it's like you said, by showing them rather than telling them. If you're a bad housekeeper, it's really hard to expect your child to be a good housekeeper because they haven't seen you do it, so they don't know how to do it. So I totally agree with that. My verse today is Proverbs 29:17. "Discipline your son, and he will give you rest. He will give delight to your heart." In our modern time, a lot of times children are considered a burden and an expense only. They're not considered a helpmeet. They're not considered a blessing to the home. In a lot of instances, they're considered, well, this is going to be more expensive. And in my opinion, part of the reason that parents sometimes feel that way is that rather than expecting the children to be part of the family and to pitch in and to carry some of the burdens of the household, instead they're allowed to sit around and play a lot of video games and not necessarily have to help with household chores, not have to learn how to cook, and that doesn't change as they age, so that you do have adults in a family home that used to be children that didn't do anything, and now they're adults that do nothing. And so of course parents are not always feeling blessed by the presence of their children when they've been raised not to be a blessing.
Right. And after after we talk a little bit about our gardens and stuff, actually when we get to the main part of the show, I do have some statistics to look at. I did graduate with a math degree, so I love statistics. I love numbers and everything. And the statistics I'm going to read over, actually, it surprised me a little bit. I'll go over it and we'll definitely talk about it. But
yeah.
So Julie, if you want to tell everybody anything new going on with your garden, or
let's see, our garden. It is doing weekly in the row garden. It's not doing real well, which is to be expected. That's how it's always been every year. The spinach did really well. The carrots are, now that the spinach has all been pulled because it bolted, the carrots are definitely getting more space, but the soil still isn't very fertile, and it was impossible to get it tilled any deeper than it is, which is only about 5 inches. And so if the carrots do anything, they're going to start to go crooked at the bottom because of how compacted our soil is. The sunflowers are about 1/3 the size that they should be right now, and the peas are not doing well. But everything in the greenhouse is flourishing because everything is not in soil in the greenhouse. They're in the straw bale beds or they're in the hot beds. And so definitely, I have decided definitely next year I know it's so good to put in experiment crops in rows, and I'll probably do that, but I'm not going to depend on it for food next year. It will be still just an experiment, and anything that I plan on feeding the family will definitely be in straw bale beds and hot beds, because it's just there's no comparison between the two methods.
Right. And I was kind of wondering that too, just because since I do have that time hop thing that goes on Facebook, and I've seen some other garden pictures from last year, it just looks like last year everything was so much bigger. And I think for our area, it's because it rained a lot. Like something else that came up was a meme, and it has a picture of a road, and it says "Meanwhile in Ohio," and it actually in one lane it shows a person like doing the freestyle swimming in it, and it shows like water like around that person and stuff. And I'm like, okay, and that was from last year, so I'm like, yeah, it did rain a ton last year. We actually had a storm 2 nights ago, Sunday night, where it woke us up actually at 4:30 in the morning. I was wide awake as soon as it started. It was thundering, it was lightning. I could hear the rain against like the house, and all I thought about was, oh, this is awesome. Like, I don't have to water my garden tomorrow.
You're a gardener when you're excited about storms.
Oh my goodness, I was so excited because we needed it too. And it's really funny because I was actually driving by. We have all these cornfields all around, and it takes me about 30-40 minutes depending on where I'm going in the town that I work in. And so I drive through the country on the way there, and I pass all these cornfields, and I actually had the thought, and then before I could even tell Derek, he's like, isn't it interesting how all this corn can still grow with no rain? I'm like, I thought the same thing, because it's all green and stuff. We're just like, man, genetically engineered. You know what I mean? I don't know. It was just a thought thinking about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the water that we had, completely everything just soaked it up. So it was great. For my garden, I've gotten some zucchini, some peas have come in, some beets have come in also. I already had my radishes out, so that was good. My corn, which is not genetically modified in any way, is not as tall as the other. And I've been watering it. So it kind of shows, you know, the difference between that kind of thing. But
I have a little neighbor lady that what she does is she says you water it until it reaches knee height and then you never water it again. And she says that's the best way to get really good corn.
really,
And yeah, and she has an amazing garden, but she says it reaches knee high, you water it until it's knee high, and then you never water it again. And I looked at her and I'm like, really? She's like, yep.
Is it really hot weather though? We have a couple of heat advisories that are going to be going on this week where we're going to get into the hundreds.
She said that's what she said. I mean, we can get that high, and usually we don't get rain during the year. It's very abnormal for us to get even any rain. But her garden is exceptionally fertile because she puts composted cow manure on it like every other year, and she's been growing in that spot for 30 years. So I wonder if maybe the organic matter in her soil is a little bit better, that she can dig deeper. So when she plants it, maybe the roots can still get down to water because it's so fertile and open.
Right.
That's what she said.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely look into it. I think that one of my big plans for next year is to definitely deal with the soil. I've never tested my soil, so I want to send that away and I want to test it out. And
do you guys have a county extension?
There's 2 places where we can send it in. I've heard that the 2 different places do different tests. Like they don't both test for the same things. So we've been advised to send it to one of the 2 to kind of align with one of our friends gave us this book about that I was telling you about, that about soil and what's important in it and all that kind of stuff. So the one place that we're going to send it to is going to give us like the nitrate and the iron and, you know, like all the different ones to do. And it's kind of sad because the other place is the DMV. And we were told that a lot of the farmers around here, you know, submit it to the DMV and it doesn't give you a ton of different readings that you would need in order to really care about the soil.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know why people don't send it to the other one, but I'm going to do the other one first and just see how that does and see what I can do to really, you know, enrich my soil and stuff and see what kind of a difference. I'm really excited about it because the book that I was reading was talking about how if you really have your soil, everything balanced how it should be, it'll also help with pest control and that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. I'll definitely try that for next year.
That's what I understand too. And I know that in our hotbeds and our straw bales, we don't have bugs or predation out there. We have a few grasshoppers that are in the greenhouse, but they aren't actually like doing any damage. They, you know, they wander here and there and eat a little bit here and a little bit there, but they don't seem to be attacking like any particular plant. And the other thing that I think is interesting is talking about gardens is if you've ever read Laura Ingalls Wilder, I think it's A Little House on the Prairie. When they first get to the prairie, the dad doesn't go out and pulverize all the dirt. He just goes out and cuts strips in the sod and like plows it just slightly. They put their plants in and then they just keep the weeds out just long enough for things to get strong. And then after that, they don't worry about the weeds and they don't have to water anything because the moisture that's still in the soil is enough for these new seedlings. And even though they were farmers and they were relying on this, they didn't worry about the weeds coming back in once everything got a good start. And I don't think I'd ever thought that old timers would think that it wasn't okay just to have a bare, clean, beautiful, pristine garden, because that's how my grandma was, like no weeds, everything was pulverized to within an inch of its life.
Right.
That's what they did. There was no way to keep all the weeds down, so they just didn't fight it. You know, past a certain point, they just stopped fighting it.
Yeah. Oh, and Derek just told me it's not the DMV, it's the building beside it. So my bad.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what the DMV. I was like, great. They're saving on costs and double working on different projects.
Well, I think, well, because I thought that's what the guy meant when he said, because I kept hearing him say the DMV, so I must have missed the part where he said it was beside the DMV.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
Well, that's okay.
but yeah, as far as my garden and stuff, I did pull a lot of weeds, but I've been kind of letting them go in the middle. We were gonna do the newspaper and that kind of stuff in the middle, and I'd really like to, but it's been really, really hot, and there have been other projects that have been taken over, and the plants are tall enough where the other weeds that are kind of around it aren't really bothering them. So it's kind of funny that you just said that bit about Charles Ingalls and stuff, because that's kind of how my garden's looking and stuff. So
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to our topic, which is talking about age-appropriate chores. And I was looking on the internet, looking at different, stuff that was on the internet, so I could see, what everybody else was saying was a good, appropriate thing, age for different things. So I kind of wanted to see if you agree, since you do have 2 children. But the statistics that I was talking about earlier that I wanted to kind of go over, I wanted to read this real quick, because I read it and I'm like, wow, it definitely shows that times have definitely changed. It said a recent poll found that although 82% of American adults regularly did chores as children, only 28% expect their children to do tasks such as laundry, cooking, and cleaning.
That's amazing.
And then it goes on to say of those 28% of polled parents who do expect their kids to contribute to household chores, 43% reported that the kids complained, 37% of the kids tried to get out of the chores, and 13% of parents said that their children would only do chores if they were paid.
Yeah.
I could not imagine being a kid and demanding to be paid. If my parents told me to do something, I did it. They're just questioning your parents, like, and I think I've gone over this. It's a huge concept, and if you make it that way with everything, it really makes life a lot easier. Is the whole concept of not making it a choice.
Right.
I've talked about before how I used to smoke cigarettes, and the reason why I quit, like, there was plenty of reasons to quit or whatever, but what actually helped me was I didn't make it an option anymore. What's that one in Psalms where it talks about the way that a man thinks in his heart, that's who he is, Basically, if I believe that I'm a non-smoker, it will be that way, because I believe it. I really believe it. So I didn't make it an option to have cigarettes on me. I didn't make it an option to go out and have a cigarette break when I was a server in a restaurant. I didn't even tempt myself with it. And I went back to my high school mentality when I didn't smoke. And I did the things that a non-smoker would do. When I was stressed, I would go to God. I wouldn't turn to a cigarette, or I wouldn't turn to having a beer. So basically not making it an option. So that really, really helps when you are bringing up kids. We never had the option of saying no to our parents. I even, like, now, I think I might have joked around with my dad once, and he said something and I go, no. And we both just laughed, and then I did it. Like, there was no, and I see kids all the time who say, like, no, or I don't want to. And I'm just like, I'm like, what? But if you don't make it an option, it's not an option, This is how it is. Everybody pulls their own weight. And something I go over when I do talk to moms in, like, the mops groups and stuff is that since you're teaching your kids how life is, when they have chores, that's their work that they do to pay for how they're living, like their room and board. When they carry that over into adulthood, they go and get a job, and that's their chores, quote, chores, that gives them the money that pays for their rent, their room and board. So it's how life is. They, as soon as kids can start helping you out, you know, the Bible says many hands make light work. And you have extra hands when you have kids. And if you
Yeah.
are able to really give them tasks in different ways to help out, then they won't seem like such a burden. You know,
Yeah.
it is during the earlier years when they are more dependent on you, because not only do you have to take care of yourself, pick up after yourself, but you have to do the same thing with the kids also. But once they help, it'll be worth it. And the sooner you start, you know, the better. So
And I know that there's people out there that say, you know, I feel like it was and this is a really sad thing for people to believe, and I wouldn't want to say that it's really 100% true, but a lot of kids after a parent's divorce, they will say, I think it was my fault that my parents got divorced. And while that's not true, because parents choose not to be together, and that's their choice, the truth is that when you have children in a home that are always fighting and don't help around the house, so that the burdens are heavier on the parents, it doesn't help the parents' marriage at all. It doesn't and that's, again, that's the parents' fault for not having taught them to be part of a family. When you have people in a group that are supposed to be a family, but they never help each other, and maybe one person is always doing all of the household activities, and one person is earning all of the money, and thus they feel polarized against each other. Having more help in a home creates more harmony, because when you do kind things for other people, it builds a feeling of love and appreciation from
rather
both
than
parties.
resentment,
Yeah,
right?
rather than resentment. And children can feel the resentment that their parents have for them, and a lot of times parents can't help those feelings. My kids are really good with helping sometimes, and sometimes they're kind of good with helping, and sometimes they're not good with helping and they lie about it. And I know that depending on how my children are behaving, even though I will always love them as my children because they're my children, my feelings of adoration, my feelings of appreciation, my feelings of wanting to do things for them as well, strongly hinge upon whether or not they're being obedient, whether or not they're being part of the family, rather than being a burden on the family.
Right. Right. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull up real quick that chart. Um, and a lot of people don't realize how young you can start with having your kids help. Um, Ages 2 to 3. I'm gonna go ahead and start reading the list. Put toys in toy box. Usually when you have say, I don't know, I visited a couple of different moms where if they're relaxing to keep their kids busy and stuff, like they'll let them
Mm-hmm.
just tear down all the DVDs off the shelf or all the books off the shelf, which is fine and good. But if they were to show them, you know, get them like showing them to start putting it back, and when they start taking it down, be like, no, 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 let's put this back, or like just showing them or keep
Yeah.
doing it. And then eventually they're sponges. They will see that. And it's the whole thing with patience. And it's kind of in the stage where it's very hard to have patience because there's also that lack of sleep, which makes
Yeah.
you like zombie mode and you're just
Correct.
trying to survive. And I understand that um I have a ton of nieces and nephews, and I haven't experienced that myself, but I've heard about it enough not to know exactly how it feels, but to understand that that's definitely a factor in your patience level. So
Yeah.
it's really, really hard. And that's why you have to depend so much on God and just really
Yeah.
lean on Him to help you through that. But if the kid sees you start to doing stuff, um, what what age was it when you notice? I don't know if it was around the same time, but for each kid, like how old was Kaya and how old was Paige when they started first mimicking what you were doing?
About 18 months, maybe 2 years. At that age, they were capable of helping to feed and water chicks, or to play with a dustpan, or to pretend to wipe a table down.
Mhm.
And when did they actually become really useful? Is it about 8, maybe 9? That's when they start to become really dependable. And before that, it is, like you said, it is going through the motions. And especially for sleep deprived parents, the one thing that I can really hammer home is get rid of junk. You will spend more time trying to clean junk up than spending time with your children if you have young children. And so I would highly recommend that they only have a few toys, like maybe 3 toys, instead of having a big bin full of toys, or a room full of toys, because kids have a very, very hard time interacting with things if they're buried among other things. It's one thing if
Mm-hmm.
they're outside playing, because then they're outside interacting with nature and there's real interaction. But in a room with a whole bunch of toys, they'll hop from one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing and not really come down and land and focus on something if there's too much choice. And so by pulling it down to maybe 3 toys, they're, for one thing, they're capable of cleaning up 3 toys. For another thing, they're capable of loving 3 toys. And
Mm-hmm.
you're capable of helping them remember to clean up 3 toys. And so doing the same thing to your own belongings so that you're very minimal, so that you're not having to do as much laundry, so that things are having baby clothes that are more on the darker hue rather than on the lighter hue, so that when you're doing laundry, you can wash everybody's clothes together. Anything that cuts down on your need to be fidgeting with stuff. Allow
Derek. She started talking, it just kind of cut off. Yeah, so having a lot of toys, it's very, very hard nowadays for people to imagine kids only having a little bit of toys. From what I've seen and how many people do have uh, all these different bins of toys, I think as an adult, you have to kind of put yourself back into uh, a kid position again, where when we were very, very small, we could literally take one toy and play with it all day. Whereas
or
now,
rocks.
yeah, exactly. And now, I think I read somewhere where like I think it was like 10 years ago, our attention span was like 13 seconds or something. And now I think it said in 2009, our attention span went down to like 6 seconds. So with us, with our mentality as adults, we might think, oh, well, that's not going to keep them busy, or they can't play with just one toy. We need all of these options and stuff. And sometimes all these options are not a good idea. You know, if you are given a list of like 3 things you can choose from, that is so much easier than seeing like, oh man, if I go to a place where there's ice cream and there's all flavors and they all sound great, I'm just like,
Right?
oh, but this is only one time. How am I going to be able to have just one decision, you know? And
So
I know
true.
that sounds kind of silly to say that kind of puts stress on you, but you don't want to
It
introduce any
does.
kind of stress to a little kid, you know? And
Yeah. Well, and what we found was that as we've been thinking about moving into an RV, I actually went through all their books, and anything that they don't constantly ask me to read, I got rid of it. And so a lot of people are like, "Oh, books, no, it's the best thing in the world to read to your kids." Well, that's true, but what happened was my kids hadn't been asking me to read to them. And and when they went to get a book, they would take 5 minutes to pick a book. Now, I say, okay, let's sit down and read a book. They run, they grab their favorite book that they've heard a million times, but it's the only one they want me to read. They come and ask me constantly to read a book to them because they know their favorites are there. They don't have to dig through anything, and they don't have to be confused by whether or not, well, did I want this one? Did I want that one? Are all the books scattered all over the house, or are they all here? The ones you love the most are available. And it makes it time efficient. It makes it enjoyable for everybody.
right. And you know, there is a huge difference. Like since I clean houses and everything, when people start the process of hiring somebody to clean their house, they can definitely they realize that if I'm giving 4 hours to clean the entire house, like this is wiping everything down, sweeping, mopping, vacuuming, moving stuff, you know, cleaning all the rooms. Um, if they have more stuff that's laying around, I can't do as much in a time frame. Like it literally, you spend so much time and added stress having more than having the benefit of, well, I'm going to have, these 20 toys to keep my kid occupied. Yeah, but then you lose time with them because you're constantly picking those up. If you haven't gone through the age appropriate list and started to teach them to pick them up themselves, but even having them picking them up takes them longer to do it. It's just, you're missing out on a lot when you actually have more materialistic things. And that's another reason why I think in the Bible, it definitely, we don't want that emphasis on wanting earthly things or worldly things and possessions and all that stuff, because like I always like to think of, you come into this world naked, you leave naked. You can't bring anything in, you don't bring anything out. So
Amen
having
to
the
that.
attachment to those things is just, it's added stress. It really is, and you're never going to be satisfied with, oh, I have this, this, and this, because it's on to the next thing, so it's so much better to have an appreciation for the few things that you have than to go on. But I'm actually going to go ahead and go on this list because I thought it was very interesting. I was looking a little bit further into it. Okay, so it says age 2 to 3. It says put toys in toy box, stack books on shelf. So usually that age that, you have kids taking everything off shelves and stuff, but during age 2 to 3, they can start, putting it on themselves, putting it back on the shelves. And then place dirty clothes in the laundry hamper. So, you can go through your room, throw trash away, carry firewood, fold washcloths, set the table, fetch diapers and wipes, dust baseboards, which is funny because when I read that one, I'm like, what? Then I'm like, well, I guess it wouldn't be bad on their back because they're already down there.
Right.
Because they're so short. But the thing is that out of that list, they like the majority of those things is what you would need in order to clean your room. So, if there's any, the 2 to 3 year old can throw it in the trash. They can wipe the baseboards. They can put stuff back on a shelf. They can put their toys in you know what I mean? So there's no reason for, okay, I have to share this. One of my clients, 2 days ago, I was talking to her and she's like, so my son said to me, Mommy, your room is so dirty and mine is so clean, is always clean. And she said, well, that's because Miss Cinnamon and your mommy are the ones who clean it. And she's like, so guess who's going to be yours? And he's 3. And he said that. Yeah. And so I thought that was hilarious because I'm like, when they're that age of learning concepts, how things work and stuff like that. But I just thought, I also had this small thought. I'm like, oh, wrong statement to say, buddy.
Exactly.
Because now he's, he's definitely showing that he's at that age. Yep.
Yep.
I was looking at the next page or the next set, which is age 4 to 5, and it says, first one on there says feed pets. Mm-hmm. So this kid that I was just talking about, that's 3, he's 3 and his job is to feed the dog. Mm-hmm. So he already has that responsibility at age 3. So that's even younger than what this says. And so she said, we're just going to start adding on to the chores and responsibilities that he can do, because if he can feed a dog, he can definitely do those other things.
Right.
So, so I'm going to read through the rest of the age 4 to 5. And if you hear any that you had your girls do earlier, definitely chime in. Wipe up spills, put away toys, move the bed or make the bed, straighten bedroom, water house plants, sort clean silverware, prepare simple snacks, use handheld vacuum, clear kitchen table, dry and put away dishes, disinfect doorknobs. So, I mean, all those, if you have a child who is age 4 to 5 and you let them do some of those things, there are going to be some that while they're learning, they're not going to have it 100%, perfection as if an adult would do it, but they're learning. And you have to understand that the beginning stages, it's not so much that they're doing it to take it off of your list of things to do, but
Right.
they're learning how to do it. So even though you're going to have to do it after them, it will get better. They will get to that point where they're going to fully know how to do it and to be able to help them. So
Well,
did you hear that either Paige or?
but that was exactly the right age for everything that I heard on that list. That was exactly the age when the girls were able to take it on. But the thing, even to this day, the thing that is the most important is that you stay present. It's not whenever you have given a child a task, you cannot leave the room, because they learn to wait for you to leave the room, and then they will put it off. And so as a parent, the biggest thing is that I do my chore that I'm doing, whether it's making my bed or doing laundry. I do my chore while they are doing their chore, and that way my eye is on them. I'm seeing if they're doing a good job. It means I'm not yelling up the stairs or yelling at them. Instead, I'm present in the room, and I can say, well, you missed this, or well, you missed that. And I can explain to them the difference, that if when they gain the responsibility that they do it themselves, mom won't have to watch them, but they will cut every corner and try to sneak every little thing that they possibly can. And so you have to check every detail so that they understand what it looks like when it's done right.
Absolutely. And that is the key thing to do, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, we tried to have, the no shoe rule in our house, but that lasted for a week. Why did it last for a week? Did you all of a sudden say, shoes? Oh, well, if you wanted it to happen, you really cannot make it in other rules when you don't obey the rules, of the household. This is, you have to clean the toilet right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there has to be consequences for not listening to the rules. And as the parents, it is your house.
Mm-hmm.
You are allowed to make as many rules as you want. So,
Yeah.
because then they know that when they are parents, that they can have that same authority,
Yeah.
So,
And it is important.
absolutely.
There's so many people that get abused by their children. You see it in the grocery store all the time, where you have a child that's old enough not to be pulling fits anymore, that physically throws themselves on the ground. That is, I'm not talking about people with disabilities, but people where it's obvious the child can talk. It's obvious the child is cohesive in being able to understand that they're misbehaving, but that they know that they're out in public. They know that this is a good time to throw a fit because mom can't do anything about it. And so reinforcing good behavior while you're home helps so much with those problems where kids go out in public and they think they can get away with more, because you've been consistent enough at home that they know they really can't get away with anything. Like you said, having consequences for bad behavior.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I forget when my mom and I were talking about this, but she said the only time that I really threw a fit, and she said it's because when I was really young and she was dropping the kids off to Vacation Bible School, and I bawled because I couldn't go. And she's like, I couldn't really punish you because you were upset about not being able to go to Vacation Bible School.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny.
Well, and the thing is that you have to be together as a team as a spouse with your kids. In that I've also seen in grocery stores where mom will always swoop in and rescue the kids from dad when he's disciplining them. They're like, no, you can't say it that way to her. No, you can't do that. And so the kids learn to detest dad and cling to mom, but they don't respect mom. They're just clinging to her. And so being able to stand up with your spouse and say, no, dad said this is what's going to happen and I'm going to stand with him. Or no, mom said this is how it was going to be and you obey your mom. This is also a learning experience. It teaches you to respect your home. It teaches you to respect the roles that the parents have. And it does teach you how to work in a family by having these responsibilities and not being able to play the mom and the dad against each other when it comes to jobs and privileges and punishments.
My mom and dad would always be like, there's no divide and conquer in this house. So they would absolutely never talk about disciplining or while they're making the decision in front of the kids, because they want to present themselves as a team that they decided together. So we never knew, like, did dad agree with it? We decided this. But if you say it in front of the kids, then, you know, that can create some division.
Yeah.
I had some friends actually growing up who said I would go to mom and ask her, and if she said no, I would go to dad and say mom said yes, and then I would get away with it because they never talked together
Yeah.
about it. And I'm like, that never flew with mine, because I would ask mom, and I remember, and this sticks out in my memory too, I wanted to go to my friend Nicole's house, and I had done my usual, I cleaned the living room and I took everybody's clothes up from the bathroom floor. And then I asked her, I'm like, can I spend the night at Nicole's? And she's like, well, we'll have to wait for your dad to get home from work. And I'm like, okay. And so he didn't go home until it was too late to ask. And I was so upset because he's like, yeah, she could have. He's like, yeah. But I knew, like, I called her and I said, my dad isn't home yet. And she's like, well, you know, he's going to say yes. I'm like, I know, but, you know, I have to wait for dad to get home. And so he came home and it was too late. So then we did it another day, which was fine. But I didn't throw a fit or anything like that because I knew that's what the rules were. Even if it would have been assumed that he would have said yes, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, you don't divide and conquer. But
Well, and that's what we do in our house, is that I will say, what did your dad say? What did your dad say? And I think there is one exception to this rule, and that is if there's bodily harm. If you know that your spouse is out of control, if there was a moment where it was obvious that your spouse was out of control and that there might be real bodily harm done to a child, that would be the instance where you would take over and you would say, no, this is not going to happen. You're going to go cool down for a little bit. There have been some instances where I saw that happen in my home as a child, where it was like, we need to take a break before there's any disciplining done. And it's happened in my home where something that was really precious, steam was coming out of their ears, and you needed to be able to walk away. And I think that's really the only instance where the other parent steps in and says, no, we're going to calm down first. So,
yeah, and that's completely understandable too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move along. So age 6 to 7, it says gather trash, fold towels, dust, mop floors, empty dishwasher, match clean socks, weed garden, rake leaves, peel potatoes or carrots, make salad, replace toilet paper roll. For the empty dishwasher, it's really funny because one of my nieces, she's 2, and she actually will load the dishwasher. Like and she'll come up to you and she'll say, done? And, you know, and then if you're done, she'll take your plate and she'll take it to the sink. Like, she is a genius. She does all this stuff because, you know, dad cleans constantly. He's doing that. And so she sees him do that stuff and she does it. And my mom said that she was over there and she actually, like, needed to be changed. So she, like, took her hand and led her over there and she laid down and, like, got, you know, for her to go ahead and change her. And she had, like, the wipes and stuff for her, or grabbed a diaper for her, like, knew the routine. So it is a lot about action and them seeing you do that kind of stuff. So does any of those things surprise you that
no, we had Paige loading and unloading the dishwasher at that age. But again, and I know I'm harping on a dead horse or whatever, is that it sounds like your brother is it your brother or your sister in their house? For your niece?
Oh, my sister. One of my sisters.
So it sounds like they have really amazing routine, and probably it sounds like they don't have a lot of clutter, because again, when we had too many dishes, it became difficult for Paige to load and unload it. When we didn't have too many dishes and we didn't have grandma's china and we didn't have a whole bunch of plastic things that we were holding on to, and when we kept everything down at her level, so everything had to fit in cupboards that were at her eye height, they couldn't be up in a cupboard where she had to get a chair, she was able to do that kind of thing. And it was a pretty big help. At that age, I think it really depends on the child so much, because and also in short bursts. Is it something they can do in a short burst? Because Kaya can do some of those things, but her attention span is very, very, very short. So even if I've told her to do something, a lot of times she'll forget that I've asked her. It's not necessarily naughtiness. It's just that if something distracts her, she will forget that that's the task that she's been given.
Right.
So short, really, really short things and limited responsibilities at that age that they can learn how to do really well. But instead of loading them up with like 10 different tasks that they have to remember to do all at the same time.
Right. And I have no judgment for little kids because I constantly, I don't know, when I was in school and I was younger, well, shocker, I talked all the time. And then I'd be listening like to a story and then my mind would just, I'd go off and I'd start
Yeah.
thinking about random things. Like
Yeah.
not because I was being bad or disrespectful either. It's
It's
just,
just how you
I
work.
remember what it was like as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And personality really plays into it. I think that it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna go through ages 8 through 9, and this is small print. That's why I'm like trying to read it. Okay, it says load dishwasher, change light bulbs, wash laundry, hang fold clean, hang/fold clean clothes, dust furniture, spray off patio, put groceries away, scramble eggs, bake cookies, walk dog, sweep porches, and wipe off table. So
I would say that's exactly. Paige is capable of doing all that. What comes down to it is mischievousness.
yeah.
Is if she's having a really good day, she can do all of those things. But a lot of times what happens is that instead of if I want something done in a particular way and in a particular time, like laundry, I will have her do the bulk things like carrying the laundry downstairs where it's easy for me to do, and then I'll do the laundry because I know that she won't sort it. I know she'll do laundry, but she wouldn't sort it. And if I gave her a hose to spray something off, she'd end up spraying it into the house because she wanted to clean the windows, but the windows weren't closed. And so with that kind of thing, the older they get, the more stubborn they get about wanting to do it their own way because they've been doing it a long time. And I'm grown up, Mom, I can do it. But so it's fantastic. She can do an amazing amount of work, but she can get very stubborn and she can be very mischievous. But mostly it's about the stubborn. It's about, well, I've been doing this chore for so long, Mom, I should be able to do it the way I want to. And a lot of times it, and they're trying to take on new chores at that point. They'll see things that need to be done and they'll decide they're going to do them. And then it takes
awesome.
a lot. It's awesome, but it takes a lot of patience for Mom and Dad to look at it and recognize it for the fact that they're trying to pick up new chores rather than looking at something they completely ruined because they didn't actually ask how to do it first.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this list real quick. So this is something to look forward to. Wait, how old is Paige right now? She's 8?
She's 9.
She's 9. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is ages 10 to 11. It says clean bathrooms, vacuum rugs, clean countertops, deep clean kitchen, prepare simple meals, mow lawn, bring in mail, do simple mending. Haha, I'm sure she already knows that.
Yeah.
Sweep out garage. And then for ages 12 and up, it says mop floors, change overhead lights, wash/vacuum car, trim hedges, paint walls, shop for groceries with list, cook complete dinners, bake bread or cake, and do simple home repairs, wash windows, iron clothes, and watch younger siblings. So I think some of those,
I think you can mix and match some of those a little bit.
Yeah, I think
Paige
so
already
too.
can make dinners and she can sew and she can do other things. I probably wouldn't let her change a light bulb and I probably wouldn't have her use the lawnmower, but everything else, she can go, I can send her into a grocery store and she can go pick out the things that I've asked her to pick out. And so I really think that by, pending disabilities, disabilities kind of change things a little bit, but I think most kids by the time they're 9 can do what an adult can do.
Yeah.
With the exception of things that are possibly dangerous, that they might need a little bit, like they might need to be taller, they might need to be a little bit stronger, they
Right.
might need to have a little bit more experience in the world. Lawnmower I wouldn't do, light bulbs. And I don't let my kids ride their bikes on the streets without me because of predators and
Mm-hmm.
because of people that aren't paying attention on the road. And those are probably things that my parents would have let me do. I was riding my bike in city streets by myself when I was 7, but I think the world has kind of changed a little bit since then.
Yeah, I think it has to. Were there any farm chores or anything that something that wasn't on that list? Like, because that was a cleaning list. Was there anything that maybe you think anybody who's listening who is maybe wanting to do gardening and stuff, but maybe they think it's overwhelming? I mean, what age can kids start helping you with gardening so it would be more than one person working on it?
With anybody under the age of 9, pretty much you're having them help is more work than doing it yourself. So for really young children, it's more have them as a gopher so that you can sit and focus on a task and they can run and get you things or run and take things to the garbage or they can run
Right.
and get you a basket. Using a child under the age of 9, I strongly believe for things like that, use them as your gopher because Kaya can do light checking on animals, but somebody has to check up that she did it. So somebody has to go do it anyway. It's not bad for her to do it, but you really can't rely on her. Paige, same thing. If she feels like it's inconvenient and she thinks that mom isn't watching, she won't go take the water out to the rabbits. And so that one thing is kind of a concern. You always double check if there's something alive and in a cage. You always have to double check at least once a day yourself because animal suffering is the one thing that is kind of a big deal on the homestead. But let's see. So I pretty much use the girls as gopher. Anything that's skilled or slightly dangerous or that needs to be like stacking wood, I would always go with them. With weeding, they're not very thorough at this age. And so I could, mostly I just use them as gopher, go for this, go for that while I do the delicate things where animals' lives are kind of depending on us or if it's our livelihood for food. Paige can harvest, but she's just not very good at weeding yet.
Right. But you know what you were talking about, how you let them do it and then you go check on it. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what we're talking about is, even though you're going to have to do it anyways, this is the process where they learn how to do it and they start getting to know what's expected, in order to actually achieve the task that they're given, those chores and stuff. So,
Well, and it
um,
can be it can be a really big backup as far as parental authority and parental wisdom is that if you do
mhm,
have an animal that dies because they neglected it, they're heartbroken and it's tragic and it's so sad. And the fact that it's their fault is a pretty harsh reality for them to understand that mom and dad really do know what they're talking about. For me, I had animals that I didn't obey my dad when he told me not to give him more grain. I wanted to give him a treat. I thought I knew well enough. And I ended up killing 3 sheep that way when I was 9. Was I 9 or 11? But it really drove home to me that if my dad said something, I needed to listen because it was heartbreaking.
did you tell the girls that story?
They haven't had to have that story. They had some rabbits that they weren't feeding right, and it was horrific. It was really, really horrific. That when I figured out what was happening, they were still alive. Their eyes were still alive, but the rest of them had got to the point where we couldn't get food into them. We couldn't get water to them. It was obvious they had suffered. The girls were crying. I was crying. It was obvious they'd been suffering for a few days. And um, it was pretty horrific to watch these animals suffer and not be able to bring them back because they were so far gone and they were still alive. And it was Paige's pets. And she cried. And now when I see that they haven't done their chores right, I remind them, remember what happened to your other rabbits and how sad that was and how much they suffered. You can't,
Yeah.
you can't ever take that back.
Yeah. But, it is sad to say, but it is a good lesson for them to learn that there are consequences for their actions,
Mhm.
and that just goes right along with that. Um, so is there anything else you wanted to add with the kids and the chores or anything like that?
Well, you have in your notes talking about paying them. I don't pay my kids
Oh
unless
yeah.
what they're doing brings money in. if we have something on the farm that's actually making money and they're the ones taking care of the animals, first off, we let them pay for mistakes that they've made. If they destroy something or they waste food, we take money away from them. And when they have gotten to the point where they're doing the same amount of work that I can and they're doing it efficiently and quickly, they get paid for their chores that day, because I would have to pay a lot more to hire somebody off farm to come do that task. So the more responsibility they take on, the more capacity they have to earn money, and the more money I'm able to make because they're helping me be efficient, the more I pay them. And so that they have that connection between, I'm working harder, I'm working smarter, I'm not being a brat. Oh, I can make a lot more money when I'm not being a brat because mom's not having to fight with me. And thus I have the money to pay for the clothes that I want. I have money to pay for the shoes that I want. I have money to pay to go out to eat when I want to go out to eat. And thus, because they're acting like an adult, they have that power and the financial freedom of being treated like an adult.
That's good. I think that that would be the perfect scenario, because you do also want them to learn that, you know, you have to do hard work in order to earn money. It's not just
Yeah.
handed to you. But as far as doing chores and getting paid for them, like just stuff that around helping around the house, we didn't have an allowance. I mean, I don't remember having an allowance. I do remember that if we went to the movie theater, it was 25 cents for a tiny, small paper bag of popcorn. And so dad would give us a quarter every time that we went to the movie theater, because we could have popcorn or we could save that quarter. And the next time we went, we'd get another quarter and we could get a bag of candy for 50 cents.
Yeah.
So I would always go to the movie theater and I would always save my quarters up. And then I'd go to the gas station. I loved Chewy Runts. Chewy Runts were my favorite. And you could get 3 packs for 99 cents because my parents never bought candy. We never had we just never had snacks. It was always meals. We didn't snack all day long. In our eyes growing up, rich people had snacks.
Right.
So,
little
yeah.
applesauce containers. Our big treat was fruit.
Yes. You know what? That is so funny that you're saying that, because one Christmas, and I still don't know who did this. I think I have an idea, but one Christmas, somebody left this really big fruit basket on our step. And all of us were just like, like it was the best Christmas ever. And I remember mom's like, okay, we're dividing it equally because all of us wanted everything that was in there. And like,
Right.
we had, okay, sorry to say this, but we had the worst fruit farts like after that,
Oh,
because
no.
we just kept eating all the fruit like the next couple of days. But anyways, like that was one of that, and I still remember that, and I still remember how, you know, how touched I was that some stranger would, you know, drop something off like that. But we cherished, you know, fruit and stuff.
Yeah.
And when we'd go to other people's houses and they'd eat like half an apple and be like, meh, and they'd throw away the rest, I'd be like, what? Like my parents would have a cow if I did that.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I would save those quarters and I'd get, you know, Chewy Runts or whatever. But the way that I made money when I was in high school is that once I was 12 and I was allowed to, I wanted to be in band, and I had to pay for my instrument, so I would babysit, and then I would pay off, you know, the instrument that I had used in band. And so I would babysit, or my brother would have, I don't know if I told you the story yet, but my brother would have a stopwatch, and I would give him a back massage. We'd all be watching TV and I'd give him a back massage for 20 minutes. And if I lightened up and he didn't think that I was giving a good quality massage, he would add another minute. And so I had to make sure it was hard. And so I became a really good masseuse or whatever. But for 20 minutes, he would give me $1. And so and my sister, Sheena, I told her this later, and she's like, if I would have known that, you would have been making so much money.
Right.
So that's how I made money until I was old enough to have like an outside like job, you know, but I don't remember having, getting paid for chores. I remember during the summers, my mom had this chart. She tried this one summer and I would be the only kid that would wake up in the morning. She had this big calendar chart and each day somebody would do a different thing, and that some of my sisters wouldn't do it, and I'd have it the next day, and I'd be like, this is awful, because I would
Right.
always do it, but I literally would wake up and I'd go straight to the chart and I'd be like, okay, what am I doing today? Like,
Right.
I was actually excited to do stuff that everybody else had to do chores too, and that it would be clean, and I don't know what's wrong with me, but anyways.
Well, everybody has this, some people just really love that sense of order and organization and what something looks like when it's clean. And it is a wonder, a lot of people don't come to that until they're later in life. But I think most people come to that sense of excitement about things being tidy and orderly and beautiful. Eventually they come to it. And so you just came to it younger, but I think everybody comes to that, that delighting in things being orderly. But
You're very gracious. Thank you.
well, it's true. I really think it's true. And I think to moms it comes because you realize how much happier your family is when things are running smoothly. But as far as like chores, when I was a kid that we got paid for, we didn't get paid for housework. But I think if as a 9-year-old I'd been able to keep the house clean like Paige does, I think my parents would have paid me. The way they split it up was I got my mom had 7 kids and she was always sick, and so she wasn't able to clean the house and do things like that. And so my dad would pay us for things that ordinarily a mom would do. So I ironed my dad's work shirts and I got paid like 10 cents a shirt or 25 cents a shirt. And my sister would bake bread and she got paid like $1 per loaf, and she would make all the bread. And then if there was farm work that needed to be done, we would get paid for the farm work. And then as I got older, my mom paid me to homeschool my 2 little brothers. And so it was one of
That's
those
awesome.
things where they didn't want us to work outside of the home. They wanted us to be able to work at home. And so because of that, they had to give us more opportunities to make money because they were restricting us and not allowing us to work outside the home. And so and there's some people that feel strongly about that. They don't want their younger teenagers to be working the night shift somewhere or working at a gas station. They don't, for whatever reason, they don't want them to do that. And in that case, I think it's really important for a parent to give money making opportunities in the home that are within their value systems.
Right. And I think that's a really good idea. We're going to go ahead. I figured we'd each give a tip for our specific, profession area. So I'm going to go ahead and give a cleaning tip. What gave me the idea was there's this one house I clean for, and throughout the week, her teenage daughter will clean also, if anything, gets out of order or anything like that. And so I was sweeping and she's like, and so I'm like, hey, I'm going to give you a pointer. And I was telling her how I do my sweeping and mopping. And she's like, that's awesome. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and share it. If you're doing all the floors at once, a lot of the times if you have tables that have chairs and everything, people will flip them up over the table, or they'll move them all into a different room or anything like that. This is what I do. Before you go to sweep or dry mop, people call it, like with a broom, any of your rooms, if you're doing all of them at once, have all your chairs pushed in. So what you're going to do is you're going to start on one end and then you're going to move back, across to the other end of your house or whatever. When you get to a table where the chairs are, you're going to sweep behind where the chair is, and then you're going to pull it out and you're going to sweep underneath it, and you're going to leave all of your chairs out. So then you keep sweeping, you sweep everything, across the room and stuff. And I actually sweep everything onto the carpet. One reason people don't do that is because they say, if they vacuum that up, all the hair is going to get tangled up into their vacuum, and then they have to use the scissors and give their vacuum like a haircut and stuff. What I do is, if you have a lot of girls, or any girl actually in your house, you're going to have, that hair. If you take your broom and you kind of run it along right over that border from the bare room to the carpeted room, those straw bristles should pick up that hair. Or you can just take your fingers and run it through, and you can pick up, that hair, because it'll stay, in one spot usually. So anyways, so there's that. So I sweep everything onto, so I don't have to get down onto the ground. I don't have to use a dustpan or anything like that. So that's one thing that I do. And then when you go to mop your floors that's already been swept, what you're going to do is the first place you're going to mop is you're going to mop under your tables and where your chairs, if you would push them in, where they would sit.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing, mop underneath where your chairs are, and then you're going to go to the opposite end of your house or whatever room doesn't have chairs, and you're going to start there. So then when you're working your way over, by that time, and you get to the tables that have chairs underneath, it should be dry. So you're going to push all those chairs in, and then you just have to mop outside of where the chairs are. And then you go over to your carpets, and then you vacuum. That way you don't have to flip your chairs. You don't have to lift any chairs, really. You just have to be able to pull them out. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to move them to another room or anything like that. And that's what works the fastest for me when I'm doing all the floors at once.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great
my
idea.
tip.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know. The one thing that we have a hard time with is our vacuum. We have to replace vacuums like crazy because we have, like you said, the hair problem.
I can actually, when we get our what is it called? Our Amazon thing up and running, I can go ahead and suggest. I have a vacuum that I got in 2014 and that I use because I have a vacuum for houses with dogs, a vacuum for houses with cats, and a vacuum for houses that don't have any pets at all. So that's not cross-contaminating anything or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the 2014 top consumer reports, especially with for pet hair, picking up pet hair. And I've had it for 2 years, and I've used it on multiple houses where I sweep their entire house, sometimes 2 houses a day. And you know what I mean? I use it Monday through Friday, and it's still going great. And it was awesome. I don't want to say only, but vacuums can be up to $400, actually more than that, which is ridiculous. But this one, I think it was like $95, and I ordered it online at Walmart, and it's free shipping. So it was under $100, and it's still working great. So if you do have any problems with, vacuums breaking down or anything like that, this would definitely be a good one. So I can go ahead and get the model number and stuff, and we can set that up.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I need to check that out because we go through vacuums like nobody's business.
It's really light too.
Well, and that's important. And our problem has always been with filters and hair wrapping up on things. But I guess it's an important tool to have, and you just replace them when you have to. But darn it.
Yeah.
Okay, so my holistic tip is that drinking enough water during the day is vital to having energy. I don't like our well water. It's kind of a darker color, and I just don't like our well water. And so what I do is I will make herbal teas, and I won't sweeten them. I'll just drink them as if I was just drinking water. And I find that caffeine cannot give me as big of a boost as just having a quart of water every couple of hours. And for me, it's in the form of tea, and it's not caffeinated. And also getting enough sleep. A lot of times we overeat or try to caffeinate ourselves or try to sugar ourselves up, not because we're hungry, but because we want to work harder. We have more work that needs to be done. And instead of allowing ourselves or finding some way to rest, which is really hard if you work, or have kids, there's so many times it's hard to find a time to sleep when you really need to. But if instead of eating you can drink some water, and you can look at it and say, maybe I need to find another activity that doesn't require me to be up on my feet. Maybe I can sit to do this work, or maybe I can recognize that at this time of day I am fatigued, and this is the time when I need to take my lunch, not this time when I still have energy.
Right.
But kind of working around your own schedule.
Right. And, I guess it would be more of a health tip, but I read it. I read it somewhere. I wish I would keep my references so that when I, reiterate it, it's, but they said that if you drink a full glass of water first thing in the morning before you take anything else, coffee, eat anything, drink anything else, that gets your metabolism going. And it helps you with your digestion. So I told my mom that for like forever. And just recently, I think she's done it for about 2 or 3 months now, but she's like, she's like, it's making a difference, you know.
It does.
And it actually, if you get into that routine, I'm kind of guilty. I start off with either cereal or coffee. But I was doing it for a while. And when I was doing it, I would actually wake up and I would be so thirsty. And it would
Yeah.
be easy then, because I know at the beginning, some people, especially if you kind of have the mentality of I have to do this, sometimes it's harder to make yourself drink or eat something, you know. But if you train, you have to train your body. Any kind of healthy thing is not going to, you know, if I see broccoli over here, but then I see, you know, like a little Debbie, and then you can tell I'm totally not in shape right now, because the broccoli would, you know, sound great if I was really healthy right now. But if I see both of them, I'm not going to be like, okay, broccoli, no, I'm going to go for the little Debbie because that sounds good.
Right.
Even if I did make myself eat the broccoli and I know it tastes great, I know once I ate it, I'd be more happy because of how it would make me feel.
Right.
You know, and so you have to train your body to do that kind of stuff. So once you train your body to drink that water in the morning, it's your body expects it. You know, it helps with digestion, helps with energy, helps with all that stuff. So that's definitely a good thing to do. So
well, and I think the prep has so much to do with being able to do that kind of thing, recognizing your habits and kind of prepare, like you were talking about with the cigarettes, that by saying I'm not a smoker, I'm just going to go back to the habits I had before I was ever a smoker, to say I'm not somebody that eats too much sugar, and instead, you know, that you have fruit prepped in the fridge. For me, it's like you said, it's a huge thing with your metabolism to have that water first thing in the morning. And because I know that I don't like water, if instead I'll make my tea at night and leave it out on the counter with a lid on it, so that I can, it's not too cold to drink the whole cup first thing in the morning, and it's available, it's ready for me. By doing that, I have taken away any excuse I have not to drink it first. But if I don't prep it, then yeah, I might reach for the coffee, I might reach for the milk first, because I'm thirsty. I don't want to wait to make the tea.
Yep. And I completely understand. I tried to get Derek to do it when he was working at the factory, and it actually, there are certain jobs where you can't do that. I understand, because like for him, when he worked in the factory, they only allow you certain breaks where you can use the bathroom and stuff. So I completely understand that. But I've been very blessed where I can use the bathroom whenever I want. So there are different factors that, you know, in that and stuff. So. But okay, so I liked that show. That was really awesome. Hopefully everybody else liked it too. If you guys would like to check us out or help us out at all, we do have Patreon set up on our account. You guys can go to our Instagram, our Facebook. We have a YouTube page. We have everything that you, a ton of different, you know, social media where you guys can help us out. Share with anybody you think likes gardening, has children, likes cleaning. And if you only have guy friends, maybe they have, you know, wives who like that kind of stuff. So the more you guys share, the more that definitely helps us out. So all of our stuff is located at Jill's of All Trades Podcast. So that's our Instagram, jillsofalltradespodcast.com. It's our Facebook, and it's our YouTube channel also. So yeah, if you guys have any ideas or anything you guys want us to cover in our upcoming shows, we're always open for ideas. Just give us a subject and we will definitely talk about it.
Yeah. And did you want me to still do the exiting line?
Sure.
Okay. This is from Seneca, who was a philosopher in, was it 82 AD? Long time ago. 5 BC, 8265. So long time ago. And he is a philosopher that was known for being instead of thinking about your problems in life or thinking too much, instead be a doer. And this is what he said. The article is called On the Shortness of Life. And this is what it is. Why do we complain about nature? She has acted kindly. Life is long if you know how to use it. But one man is gripped by insatiable greed, another by a laborious dedication to useless tasks. And it goes on to talk about things like that. But it is that, let's see, what is it? Where is it that she said that? Life is long if you know how to use it. And so find what you want to do with your life and use your life to do that thing rather than meaningless tasks that you don't love.
Like putting away all of these extra toys that you have.
Like putting away all these extra toys that you have that you don't love so that you can spend time with your kids.
Yes, exactly. All right, thanks for joining, everybody. Bye.
See ya. Okay, let's see. Where is my... There it is.